When you become good at one thing, when you become good at one thing, what happens then? Yesterday I talked about the one thing, and the one thing I do is everything I do is because I really believe that every person can make a difference in the world. And if I can, you can. That's like my statement. When you become good at one thing, many things happen. One thing, the more knowledge I get from a subject, the more I understand how complex it is. I will tell you a story. This was way back when I lived in Sweden. I had this big public speaking engagement, and I was before the, I think, economics, the treasurer CEO of Sweden was speaking after me. And between the break, we sat and have a coffee, and all the people were watching us like we were famous people. I don't know how to say it. And I thought, what do I say to him? So I said to him, how is the economics nowadays? How is the economics nowadays? Was the question I could come up with. And he said something really that still is in my head. He said, Michael, you know, the more you learn about one thing, the more you understand you know nothing. He was the chief of the Swedish treasurer at that time. He had studied economics all his life. In Sweden, he was quite famous. He even was the economic minister and so on. But he knew a lot of economics. And he said, the more you know, the less you understand how complex it is. I have another story. I was in different research team, study the brain, study how the brain reacts when you do different stuff. And there was this guy, he was in the committee of the Nobel Prize of medicine. So he know a lot about thinking patterns, a lot about the body. And he told me a very strange story. He said, do you know, Michael, how much we know about the body, the human life? It's like putting, this old hearing big horn you put to hear something. If you put like a horn on concert hall and you try to listen, if the first violin has his violin correct, or if it's a false tone in the violin, when you play in an orchestra and you try to listen if it's the tone is clear. That's how much we know about the body. This was like 20 years ago, but still it appears today. There is so little we know. We have much crazy ideas. Some are really good, some are it's just experiments. It's experiments, but we have no clue. It's so complicated. I have read books of the brain function since I was 10 years old. I told you that yesterday. And the more books I read, the more I see how can I explain this to people? Wow, there's so much to I have uncovered in my life, so much that I want to know. The other thing is when you become good at one thing, the simplicity appears. How to simple explain to people what you have learned. Tomorrow, or maybe some of the next day, I will even make a movie about what's the most important thing to do when you should learn something new. But the more I learn about things, the more simple I can explain it to other people. And since my vision is to believe that everyone can make a difference in the world, I really need to research things for myself and how I can see more. The more I can see, the more knowledge I have about myself. I wrote in the text here that's one of the most key thing in growing from where you are now is be more aware about who I am, but not only that, what I'm really doing, my unconscious patterns that I do, stuff that I done all my life, stuff that I learned 2 weeks ago, and yet I just swallow them and do them for months, and even if they are totally crazy, I mean, I'm really surprised that how could I be so stupid so I fooled myself to do that all the time? So observing myself, my patterns, that's one of the most effective keys to really grow quick. Because the more than I see what I'm doing, the faster I can explain it to people, and the faster I can explain exactly what I'm doing so another person can make it a habit. The quicker I learn, the more complicated I see. How can you do this? That's really insane. So when it become good on one thing, you learn the deep stuff in that thing. I remember I saw an artist on TV, and his one thing that he cover. No, I don't know the word, but yeah, discover in his world was that finally he could have a picture in his head, what he wanted to create, the art stuff he wanted to create. Finally, that picture is exactly what he created in the real world. And I thought, wow. Because when I discovered this, I couldn't create the picture in my world to be exactly the reality. But now, in my art, after many years of practice, I can really create the thing, the way I paint, like this painting, and really create what I want to create exactly. And it's like a copy of my mind. But it took me years to learn. And all the learning that I believe is true is by broaden the way I see myself. That's what I experience. All the other people I have coached over the years, hundreds and hundreds, I have coached them how to start to observate themselves. Which shoe do you put on first? The right one, the left one? Does it matter? I have no idea. But if you do the opposite for 1 week, will it make a difference? I have no clue. You have to test it. But when you do the opposite from left to right shoe, maybe something new will appear in your life. It will change. And after you have tested, you can really choose which way you want to go. Before, you cannot choose because you don't know even which foot you use first. That's only a little level which shoe you put on first when you go out from your home. If we make more complex things like why do you choose the workplace you go to, school you go to, the wife, the husband, the children you have, how can you affect them? That's totally more complex stuff. But it starts by observing which shoe you put on first. Because when you see that little thing, you become, but why do I do that? Why do I do that? There is so many crazy stuff I do every week. Still. And I try to overcome these bullshit things. Some of the things I even like to do because it connects my brain. But then I'm aware of I want to connect my brain to relax. Then I do it with intention and not by accident. So being good on one thing, you learn the depth of yourself, and you're more aware how complex the one thing you are doing is. That was my video today. I hope you enjoyed it. Yesterday was a very, very good movie. I really, if you haven't seen live broadcast 63, there was a lot of people contacting me about it. Probably the best live broadcast from this goal of mine of 100 live streaming movies. So 63, really check it out if you like what I'm talking about. So I will see you tomorrow with a new subject, whatever it will be. Take care.